Wireless LAN Professionals Podcast, episode 159.
We all learn how to drive a car before we learn how Mercedes gear shift systems works or Tesla's radio system works. So go and learn how the technology works before you start trying to apply it to specific vendors.
Wireless LAN Professionals is a place to educate, inform, encourage, and entertain those involved in wireless LANs. This Wireless LAN Professionals podcast is an audio manifestation of these goals. Our host is a wireless LAN veteran, consultant, designer, and teacher, Keith Parsons. And now, the podcast for wireless LAN professionals by wireless LAN professionals.
Time for another update on the pages that are included in the Wireless LAN Professionals Notebook. There's a page here that has conversions. It's got, American, imperial, inches, feet, yards, etc. Weights and measures, both in tons and metric tons, ounces. And then some conversions from American imperial to metric or metric to American, and also capacity. Now, other than a couple of the distances, we kind of live in our own world. Americans, we're stuck in kind of imperial zone. Some countries like the UK are kind of hybrids between both. And yet most of the world is all on metric. So I strongly encourage, if you're not thinking in metric, you should start moving that way as much as possible. We also include on the right side some conversions from different types, from meters to centimeters to kilometers, and you can kind of see the differentials in between there, as well as the prefixes that we use from giga, mega, terabyte, petabyte, etc. So you can go forward and backward with those. Just another resource that I've found useful at times in my career, and I thought you might want to find them as well. Again, if you have anything that you use as a resource, let us know, and we can see if we can include it in our next version. Thanks.
Let's get to know our colleagues and friends with a shared passion for Wi-Fi. It's time to search Who Is.
Andrew, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Great to be on. Thank you.
Well, go ahead and introduce yourself for those who don't know who you are, and tell us a little bit about what you're doing, kind of your journey into Wi-Fi and what brings you to where you are today.
So I'm based in the northwest of the UK, very close to Liverpool, in a beautiful medieval city called Chester that I recommend anybody visiting this part of the world visits. I first started with Wi-Fi back in 2003, where we took a 512 kilobit ADSL connection and shared it via 11B to our student household. And then in that same year, having seen how magical it was and what it could do, I went on and wrote my dissertation for my university degree on providing free Wi-Fi services to commuters at our regional airports. So I like to think that I started the whole free Wi-Fi at McDonald's and Starbucks trend.
Nice. Thank you for that. And so what are you doing now?
So right now I work for Vocera, who many of your listeners will know and others won't. They're known as a Wi-Fi VoIP client manufacturer in the healthcare space, although really the company's moved to be more a communications platform focused on healthcare, but also with deployments elsewhere.
Wonderful. And what kind is your day-to-day looking like?
So I think in the Wireless LAN Pros community, I have a fairly unique job. I'm not installing Wi-Fi. I'm not correcting Wi-Fi or particularly touching the customer's equipment, but I'm going in with all the tools and assessing it for voice quality to see how our platform will run over it, which, voice is quite demanding. So we really dig into, have you got coverage? And then we do have the coverage. What's the protocol analysis looks like? How's the traffic flowing? Are we roaming quick enough? Are you making my device stay awake too much to battery life, things like that? So I'm really assessing networks rather than designing or installing them.
So what's your relationship with wireless engineers that are, doing those preliminary installations before you come in?
Probably about 50% of the time we get to interact with the actual consultant who is putting the system in. a lot of times we're going to hospitals that have had their wireless for 4 or 5 years, and now they're putting our product in. So the vendor is, apart from maybe a support contract, long gone, and we're just talking to
Yeah.
on-site admins. Um, but then sometimes we do new builds, and we're there at day one, and we do get to liaise with them as well. And it's always interesting working with someone whose job is Wi-Fi, because they get it so much more than someone who's a network admin and is babysitting the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, a lot of these conversations, we're hearing the stories of, "Oh, you've touched Wi-Fi, you're now our Wi-Fi engineer," and they're jumping in there. Lost maybe some of the people listening to the show are or that's where they're at. They're listening and like, "I need to grow, I need to learn more." What are some of the pain points you run into, with maybe bad installations or things that are, when you come in and they're long gone, what's some of the common problems you're running into?
The scene has really changed in the 7 years I've worked for Vocera and I've been doing this. Originally, it was coming in and finding max power on all the access points because people weren't dense enough, running a 1 and 2 megabits per second default basic rate, which is at the out of the box for most vendors, and therefore their 2.4 gigahertz network being absolutely congested. Before they even try and transmit any data. But in today's landscape, we're really seeing very dense, mainly 5 gigahertz deployments, but with huge channel plans, which for a client that needs to roam within 100, 200 milliseconds top, can be a challenge to scan through a large channel plan, particularly on the DFS channels.
When you get to that pain point, when you see these issues, what's your typical solution? How do you approach that, and what's that mean for you guys?
uh, we try and work with the network owner or the consultant to see if they can reduce the channel plan, get away from using things like DFS. I mean, they're two very specific examples, but they really hurt voice clients that need to be mobile. Um, but at the same time, in house, we're constantly trying to change our firmware to basically pick up the slack and deal with these things where we find that network admins' hands are tied, or they don't have the education or the confidence. We're always having our recommendations. Uh, put out for a second opinion or a third opinion. So we'll say, "Can you do this?" But they'll then go back to Cisco or back to whoever installed their system and say, "Hey, Vocera's asking me to do this. What do you think?" So because sometimes it'd be a long game to get these changes made.
So what's the future of voice and Vocera kind of looking like for you guys in the next few years?
I think that voice being a mobile platform will only increase for all of us. I mean, we typically think of VoIP, dedicated devices, but if you think about it, you're having cellular providers using Wi-Fi calling now to kind of get you off of their GSM and their CDMA networks. You've got Skype, you've got FaceTime, and every other vendor's equivalent of that. So really, we're carrying a lot of voice over our networks now, and not just on SSIDs and WLANs that are designed for it, but on guest networks as well. For in healthcare example, the patients that are in their patient bed and they want to FaceTime their kid at home. So the real time communication need is just growing massively right now.
What's some things you're hoping might be changing on the horizon? Or
So I'm massively keeping an eye on 802.11x and AX, and I'm really hoping it's going to be, because what a lot of people don't realize is a voice device will work perfectly happy at 1 megabits per second. We're sending very small amounts of data, but they're very time sensitive. We want them to get through. We don't want them to be discarded. So my hope is that we've seen 11N and 11AC really widen the arteries and let us take more data, which has been counter intuitive what voice needs. With AX, I'm seeing actually these lanes being slimmed down to very small resource units, and I'm thinking, well, this is great. Now we can share the spectrum, and I can have a dedicated very skinny lane for my device, and then it can have a really fat lane next to me for someone who's doing email or transferring large image files such as radiology equipment. So I'm really hoping 11X is going to transform the landscape, and kind of be a balance between um, efficiency and large data loads.
do you have hope for that happening? Are you seeing positive signs?
We really can't make any guesses yet because there's nothing on the client landscape. I think one, maybe two vendors have access point equipment out there. So I'm not thinking this is going to be fixed in 2019. There's going to take 5 years for everyone's devices to be replaced to the point where they're 11AX capable. But I think I've got hopes for it. I know a lot of people have written off already, but almost in desperation, I'm going to remain hopeful.
Very good. A desperate hope. So let's go to
Absolutely.
your kind of journey. Go back to the beginning, your younger self. If you could give yourself some encouragement or advice to the younger you, what would you say?
Invest in some home equipment to test on, because you can read everything on the internet that you like, and just sometimes it just won't click, or you just won't get it. And within a second of putting on your own kit and actually seeing what really happens compared to what they're telling you happens makes it work. And home kit can be expensive, but you've got Cisco's virtual wireless controller, which is free to use with some limitations, but you can get a good understanding from it. ESXi from VMware is free to use. You can pick up 3502 access points to work with that virtual controller for like $40 on eBay. And then you can get a layer 3 switch from Ubiquiti as cheap as $200 now. So, in under $500, you've got something that lets you test roaming, tests encryption, and lots of the fundamental things that makes Wi-Fi work.
So just get in there, get your hands dirty, and do that as soon as possible.
Yeah, don't wait until you're on some big salary to invest. Add a piece every 2 3 years, and by the time you're 30 40 years old, you'll have a pretty proficient lab with you within your home.
That's wonderful. Great advice. Yeah, just that home lab is important. When you started out and you're learning and growing, what do you think some of the things that you did right early on?
I'd say more possibly luck than me doing things right. But I've in since I left university in 2004, so in 14 years, I've worked for only two companies, but two fantastic companies. 6 years at one, 7 years at Vocera, and they both invested in me and my career and my journey. So. I would say the things to do right is don't make a move for some flashy title, or because your mate's somewhere, or because they're offering a huge paycheck. Make the move because it's the right one for where you want to go, even if you think it's above you. If you think you're not ready for it, get in there and just work hard, and within 6 to 12 months you'll be at the level you need to be. I think I was lucky. I tried to take some roads that probably weren't right for me and my career, and the
Mhm.
doors there were closed by other people, and that actually turned out to opening up other paths for me, which took me to the two companies I worked for, and I don't look back. I think almost fate had a bit to play and steered me in the right direction rather than let me make those decisions myself.
What do you think would be some of those things that would identify when a move is a right move? Like, I know for you, maybe at least for you, what were some of those factors?
Um, for me, I like to get into a role and fully own it and become an expert at it. And as long as the company's supporting me to do that, and there's always something to learn, then I feel the role is still valid. If it ever gets to the point where you're bored, you're not learning, or the company's not supporting your need to take certifications, your need to get training, you
Mhm.
need to use the right equipment, then it's maybe time to start looking to take a move. Or if you just decide that what you're doing is not quite right and you've seen something else you like, then you can go off there. But think about it. Don't just scattergun around the industry.
What do you think if someone's out there listening and they're considering going deeper in a wireless LAN career, what are some considerations you think they should think about?
So I would definitely go for the CWNA certification as soon as I can. When I started my wireless career, I didn't know about CWNP, and I took a couple of Cisco qualifications, their wireless field expert and then their CCNA
Okay.
wireless. And they're both excellent qualifications. And obviously, the field engineers deprecated now, but they were both excellent qualifications. But they came away telling me how to turn switches on in the Cisco world. They didn't tell me why to turn them on. And then I took my first CWNA course in 2013, and I just left that course like, wow, I feel so much more intelligent than I was at the start of the week, because now I understand some RF, some 802.11 fundamentals. And it's once you've got that, then go and take the vendor certs, then go take the Aruba, the Cisco, the Ruckus
Mhm.
certs, and find out which switches they have that turn on the fundamental things you learn as part of the CWNA.
So laying that basic foundation that's not vendor specific. So then as you jump into the vendor certifications, those things start filling out that map, so to speak.
Right, exactly. We all learn how to drive a car before we learn how Mercedes gear shift systems works, or Tesla's
Yeah,
radio
yeah.
system works. So go and learn how the technology works before you start trying to apply it to specific vendors.
That's great. Now you mentioned home lab. What are other things, what does investing in your wireless LAN career, your profession mean to you?
It's something that I want to wax lyrical about needing to do and being worth it in the long term. But I remember a 25-year-old me, and I didn't have the money to be attending these
Yeah.
courses myself. So again, I've been lucky. My two employers have always backed my certifications that I wanted to take as long as I justified my reasons for them. Um, but at the same time, the internet's a very different place now to where it was back then. There's so much free stuff out there
Yeah.
from various people that learn everything you can. And if you don't have the money to do that in a formal way, then do that in a free way from the internet and the blogs and the free white papers and the webinars that are on. I like to think that when we're young, we tend to be time rich and cash poor. So use the time that you have a lot of, and maybe do a bit harder work
Yeah,
to find
yeah,
information. And then as we get older, the reverse happens. So now we pay someone in a classroom to teach us the stuff
yeah,
in a condensed way because we can. But yeah, when you're young and you're hungry,
yeah.
go find the information where you can.
So how are you investing in yourself now?
So the WLPC Prague conference that's coming up.
That's right.
Before I probably shouldn't say this on a recording my employer can hear, but before I received official approval, I just bought that myself. I thought I'm going
Yeah.
to that regardless. I believe my employer should pay for it. I believe very seriously have a presence at these things. Um, and since I've had approval to go, but it was, again, being time poor and more slightly cash rich, it was, I'm going to invest, I'm going to pay for this, I'm going to go, even if it's out of my own pocket, because I will network, I will learn, and who knows where those conversations will take me in the next 5 years.
What's been kind of some of the most valuable lessons you think you've been learning lately, just in your own path and maybe even just in Vocera and all of that?
I've only really been involved with the wireless LAN community in it for a year now. It's probably about this time last year, maybe slightly earlier. I got onto Twitter and I got onto Slack, and so I've learned an awful lot. I've learned I don't know much, compared to some of the giants of the industry. And I think we've all seen that curve, that bell curve of, you think you know everything, but you know nothing. Then you know a lot, but you think you know nothing, and then you realize, you're an expert, but you know nothing at all, or something like that. It has been like that. It's, I thought I knew everything, and then got on there and realized I don't. But I learned that there's people out there willing to help. There's a lot of people in this community that give their time very, very
Mhm.
generously and freely, which is I've never seen anywhere else in the IT industry. Um, so, you know, have confidence in yourself, but know that there's always more to learn, and find the people that can help you, and be humble when they help you because they don't have to help you.
Does that ever feel overwhelming or discouraging when you open the door and like, "Oh, man, I'm starting from nothing?"
Um, no, exciting actually. Exciting about what there is still to learn. I mean, I'm into wireless because it fascinates me every time I open a
Mhm.
protocol analyzer and look at it. So I see something new and it fascinates me. So no, the fact there's more to learn actually excites me rather than scares me. If it scares you, then that's okay. Just take it one
Step
bit at a
back and
time.
yeah.
Um, a professor told me in my first year of university that the only stupid question is the one you leave the room having not asked. And
Mm.
every time I teach, whether I'm teaching people about how to use a Vocera product that are non-technical at all, or whether I'm teaching people about wireless, I always say that, I will never think any question you ask me is stupid. I will do my best to give you an answer. If you ask me 3 or 4 times, then I'll start to question your abilities. But there's
Mhm.
no stupid question because everyone has to learn it first time.
In your professional lives, is there a project that you're particularly proud of, something that you just are really glad that you were involved with?
So this is a really cheesy answer, but the project I'm most proud of is myself.
Oh, that's good.
I was I was middle of the class at school, the joker in the pack who always got the must try harder written on the scorecard at the end of the year. And I think where I am now, my career has exceeded my expectations, my parents' expectations, my teachers' expectations. So I'm proud that I've made the right move. I've associated myself with the right people inside and outside of work,
Mhm.
um, and that I am where I am, and that I've got so much more further to go as well.
That's cool. On the flip side of that, any mistakes or what's can you think of a big mistake you made or something that was significant that really taught you something valuable?
Um, yeah, I was sent at the last minute to do a system upgrade. It was not a network system. The servers supporting our customer, and I let the customer mess around. I was in the country for 2 days. I was in New York, and from the UK, so I was flown in. And I let the customer mess around for 2 days, trying to be the friendly vendor face.
Mhm.
And then basically all the work got crunched into
Oh,
10 p.m. at night on my last day before I was due to get on a plane and fly home. And I used the tool we have for completely scrubbing a customer's server to make sure it's clean, but I forgot to move their backups.
oh.
Um, and so, thankfully, the system was still functioning because it was just the archiving server I scrubbed, but I scrubbed the customer's backup. So I learned that you can put files 2 or 3 places, and that's okay. Just always make sure you put them at least one place other than where they're supposed to be.
And maybe focus on the job as soon as you get there?
Yeah. There's time to work and there's time to play, and yeah, you need to focus on that too.
Piece of advice to maybe a WLAN pro working towards his own success, her own success, what advice would you give them?
Get into the community. It's kind of a bit of broken record because everyone on your podcast
Yep.
says it, but we're all here because of the community, really. And just today I've been talking with some guys in the UK, helping them well, they're looking at their first ever packet capture. And just yesterday I was talking on the Slack channel with the guys there about a question I had. We're so much stronger together, and I've learned so much in the last year. It's been amazing. So I've hired we've hired a few new people at Vocera recently, and my message to all of them has been get on Twitter, get on Slack, and they've really failed to make traction. And I really put a lot of credit into the Wi-Fi queue that Badman has
Yeah.
run, because from following that every single day, within the first month of using Twitter for the wireless LAN community, I knew who knew what they were talking about, maybe who didn't quite so know what they were talking about, so who to follow, and then I put my opinion out there, because everyone's got a unique experience. You might think what you do is easy because you do it every day, but there's somebody who's never done it before. So I just took confidence in what I do. I replied to a few things, gave my opinion, if nothing more to validate what everyone else was saying, because if one person says it, then you can't take any credit from that. But if 10 of us say it,
Yeah, yeah,
even though
that's
we're all
great.
saying the same thing, then you can see there's a trend, you can see there's data there. So I just got involved, watched people, read the replies, gave my response, and then that led me to Slack. And now I feel like quite a few people know who I am and give me the time of day if I need it. So if get in the community, get involved. Give us your opinion, give us your experience, and then we'll give you ours.
Very cool. So, favorite or maybe unexpected equipment or tool you're using? What's your go-to gear these days?
So my favorite tool is Wireshark. Probably, as you've guessed from talking to me, I'm all about protocol analysis. You can see so much about the network from it. Wireshark is my go-to tool. It's not unique or unusual, but it's what I use. If we're looking at physical tools, I just have the regular tools that everybody else does. So
Mhm.
the one I'm loving the most right now is we've moved to the Lenovo X1 Yoga tablet, which is so light, such good battery, so powerful compared to what I was using. It's making my life a lot easier. So it's not exciting. It's not a revelation that everyone
But
can
you
go out
love
and
it.
suddenly buy. But keep it simple. Wireshark and a good tablet.
Very cool. Um, you are presenting at WLPC in Prague. A little preview of what you're going to be talking about. A quick summary.
Yes. So I'm going to be presenting on easy voice protocol analysis, because that is something I do day in, day out, and most people
Okay.
don't. And it's quite a daunting field. People instantly just run away from voice projects because they're so demanding, but actually they're quite easy to look into and analyze. So a little bit of that. And then coming from a client vendor, I'm doing a little TED talk on why clients are sticky, because you all hate clients, and you all think they're sticky, but there's reasons they're sticky, and I want to kind of hopefully get some people to be a little bit more sympathetic.
Demystify. Yeah. Yeah. There we go. Sympathetic Wi-Fi engineers. We'll see if that can happen. Well, Andrew, thanks for being here. How can people get in touch with you, follow you?
Twitter, I'm at Mac_Wi-Fi. My blog is very similar. It's mac-wifi.com. People can email me at andrew@mac-wifi.com. And really, please reach out and Twitter me or email me. I love talking about stuff. Every conversation I have, either you're learning or I'm learning. So every conversation is worth happening.
Wonderful. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for coming on the show. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Matthew.
I'll see you in Prague.
Will do.
Wi-Fi question of the day with Lee Badman.
Well, Lee, how you been, sir?
Oh, doing good, Matthew. How are you?
I'm doing good. So, for those who are maybe new to the show or have been living under a rock, a Twitter rock, tell us a little bit about Wi-Fi question, Wi-Fi Q. What is that? Where'd that come from? The quick recap.
Okay, so for the wireless community, which I try to be active in, it goes back a couple of years now. Kind of threw out a hey, let's talk about this today kind of thing, and came back, and then I did it the next day, and came back, and when I say came back, people responded. There was good response, and kind of had the idea, let's make this a daily thing. Meet in the morning and talk all day about wireless, and I can drop out of the conversation, and other people will keep it going, and just some kind of question to kind of galvanize people around for that day. And I did it as an experiment, and it took off. And like I said, many months later, measured in years, it's still going and seems to be picking up steam, if anything.
Very cool. And that's, again, something that lives on Twitter.
Yeah, with a hashtag Wi-Fi Q.
And you just do that from your own Twitter account, right? There's not a Wi-Fi Q Twitter account, just it's from yours?
No, actually, it's a really good idea, but I'm not that progressive. It comes from it comes from my Twitter account, which is at WiredNot, all one word.
Okay, cool, awesome. Well, speaking of, give us an example. What's one of the Wi-Fi Qs you have that seem to resonate with people?
So, kind of dug deep into the bag and pulled out this question. So I asked, looking at the next few years, what are people most hopeful for and skeptical of when it comes to wireless and all things related? And it's always a great mix of answers. Always stuff that I would expect. And then there's always some surprises. So some of what I got back was a lot of, personal goals, people wanting to advance in the CWNP certifications and CCNA and things like that. A lot of personal goals, which is great to see. Then some of the more specifics, and you can tell what's on people's minds. One example, somebody was opining that they'd like to see lower cost but high bandwidth point-to-point links for rural applications for the underserved. There was some concerns about, the tariffs that are going on with all the, trade, if you want to call them trade wars, but certainly the trade discussions. A lot of concern about, is our network stuff going to get more expensive from the tariffs? Concern there. One of my personal favorites, will Cisco, ever finally take their code quality seriously? Over feature bloat, and if you're not a Cisco customer, it might not mean much to you, and if you are, it probably resonates. A lot of people speculating and hoping for more spectrum, more usable spectrum for wireless. And then probably one of the really good ones was the a lament about the main organizations involved with wireless, like the IEEE and the Wi-Fi Alliance, and even the new WLAN Association. Hopefully that those organizations can kind of align in their goals and their worldviews, instead of sometimes feeling like they're at odds with each other. And maybe if we get that far, perhaps some of the older technologies, and like 802.11b and the almost self-defeating focus on backwards compatibility might finally go away and let some real, progressiveness happen to wireless. So, like I say, kind of looking forward with optimism and trepidation, and really need to see what's on people's minds.
Cool. So, turning it to you, what was your, how would you answer that now yourself?
I'm pretty open-minded. I know a lot of people think I'm kind of grumpy. If you know me through my tweets, I'm actually really open-minded, fairly optimistic, but I'm also a realist. So, one thing for me is I welcome all of the, software defined this and the artificial intelligence that. And I know that evolution is inevitable, but I hope that there's more substance to it all than hype, and that it's actually something that can
Yeah.
be implemented and not just, more buzzwords being sold at us with a lot of licensing. And at the end of the day, you haven't really gained much, and your end users haven't gained much. So I just hope with all of the bucket of buzzwords that, seems to be kind of spilling itself all over us and all over the industry, that there's actually substance there, and that, marketing can be, held in check a little bit, and things can prove themselves out before they're held up as, this is the future, and, this is the answer to all things and all of that. So
All the old stuff is dead.
yeah, exactly. So that's where I'm at with it all.
Well, thanks, Lee.
My pleasure.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Wireless LAN Professionals Podcast, the podcast for wireless LAN professionals by wireless LAN professionals. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Wireless LAN Pros for all the latest news and updates, and also connect directly with Keith on Twitter at Keith R. Parsons. Head over to www.wlanpros.com for this episode's show notes, as well as the latest in all things Wi-Fi.